how did you find that, obviously being a female in sort of the tech space?
My whole career was spent in big corporate America, and they were all heavily female.
Talk to me about AnchorWatch.
AnchorWatch is an insurance provider. Insurance was lacking in Bitcoin.
Would you say crypto is gambling then?
You know, one of the differences between, say, traditional gambling, there's some rules in place to limit exactly how much you can take from your customers in the big picture.
How have you found being a startup? What challenges have you come across?
We ran into challenge after challenge, trying to figure out how to properly protect what we expect will be billions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin.
Hello and welcome to BetTalks, powered by 0x Processing. I'm Amber, your co-host for today, and here we have a very special guest introducing Becca Rubenfeld, entrepreneur, crypto enthusiast, and co-founder of AnchorWatch. Welcome to BetTalks.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Oh, glad. So tell me about how you got into the crypto and Web3 space.
It was accidental, actually. I had started just trading. Okay, so I had been trading my own equities, my own stocks for a long time, since I was a teenager, actually. And in 2019, a friend who I traded stock tips with had told me I might want to pick up some Bitcoin. The price was really low. So I did. So I bought some Bitcoin and I started swing trading it. So I was just, selling in and out and taking advantage of the price action. At some point in mid-2019, the price rose. I think it was something like 40% in a few days. So it really took off.
Yeah.
And I was out of the trade on about half my position. So that was too bad. And then a little bit later, about a year later, an app called Clubhouse came out.
Okay.
So Clubhouse was a social media app. It's still around, but it was very similar to Twitter Spaces. So it was an audio-only app. And so I got an invitation to try out the app, hopped on, and there were these Bitcoin rooms.
Okay.
So I jumped into the rooms, really just hoping to get trading alpha, and was sitting in the audience listening to the guys speak. And I didn't know who they were at the time, but they were Bitcoin company CEOs, they were core developers, they were miners and energy guys, they were kind of cultural icons, and they all kind of knew each other previously, and they had found each other on this app. And because it was COVID, everybody was home with quarantine and they were starved for human interaction. And so they were spending like 12 and 18 hours a day on the app just talking about Bitcoin, right? So they were, just carrying on conversation and educating people who were listening. And so I had gone in just for trading alpha, but ended up getting this master class in Bitcoin and all different aspects of it. So going down the different rabbit holes, and the conversations just went on and on. I was listening to it in the background while I was working my job at the time. And it was just fascinating. And the people in the space were brilliant. This particular group of guys was so smart. So
yeah, because how did you find that, obviously being a female in sort of the tech space, like getting into that sort of environment? Were they quite welcoming or?
I have not found it to be an issue at all. I think it's certainly very male dominated for sure, and that's very different from my prior career. My whole career was spent in big corporate America. I worked in the apparel industry. I was a fashion merchant, and then I worked at Starbucks in the corporate environment, and they were all heavily female. So it was a huge change coming into crypto and Bitcoin, which, is maybe 90% male. But honestly, I find it an advantage. I think there's a lot of surprise when I walk into a room at this point, and I really have earned a lot of knowledge. I've built a knowledge base, and I think earned a certain amount of respect from my peers. And so I think to a certain extent, it makes people double take a little bit. Like there aren't that many women, and of those women, maybe, a subset are impressive.
Yeah. Do you find they try and like pressure test you sometimes? Like, oh, does she really know?
Yes, I do think they do that, but I also think that I'm able to pass that test within a couple of minutes. I'm sorry.
It's a bit of a buzz sometimes because you're like, yeah, I know my stuff. It's okay.
Yeah. I actually enjoy it, and I feel like I kind of pass that test really quickly, like within a few minutes, and so then you actually see it click a little bit, where they're like, oh, okay, she's one of the guys.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not a thing with her, and I feel the same way. It's not a thing for me towards them, and I love the space. I love Bitcoin. I think it's going to do amazing things for the world, and I'm excited to get to build on it.
Yeah. So talk to me about AnchorWatch. What is it? What inspired the name?
So AnchorWatch is an insurance provider. So it's a very traditional business. And, we noticed on this app, we were hanging out on the app Clubhouse about 3 years ago, and we were talking about how insurance was lacking in Bitcoin. So in the crypto industry, there's a few kind of insurance options covering bits and pieces of the industry, but really custody insurance is sorely lacking. And so if you custody Bitcoin, if you self-custody Bitcoin, you're taking on all that risk yourself. So we identified that really insurance should exist. It's an asset, it's a highly valuable asset. People do face risks, and the technology to secure it is extremely robust. Right. Yeah. And so we built a best-in-class custody solution. So what we've built is something, we've called it Trident Vault, and it is the next generation of Bitcoin custody. So previously, really kind of the standard was multi-sig, where you distribute keys, maybe a 2 of 3. And we've gone quite a bit farther than that. We're utilizing tech called Miniscript, which allows us to distribute keys even farther. We can have multiple multi-sigs. So, for example, a company could have their own multi-sig, but we also hold keys alongside them, and they're both required. And we also use things called time locks that allow the behavior of the vault and the security to change over time. So we can have recovery options and catastrophe management. Okay. So we built this custody solution that ultimately is by far the safest way to hold Bitcoin. And then we back it by a Lloyd's of London insurance policy to further protect customers.
Okay, amazing. I saw that it was backed by Lloyd's.
Yeah, so that was a huge deal. It took a long time to get that backing. We had to go through a couple of years of compliance and due diligence with them, and really prove out the tech, and even ourselves that we were reputable and that we would take good care of customers. We're able to serve commercial and retail customers, and it was quite a high bar to be able to take care of retail customers. They place a lot of importance on making sure that we're treating customers fairly. So we went through that process, and Lloyd's is the oldest and most trusted insurer in the world, and we're able to cover individual and company business customers up to $100 million each.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah, and you asked about the name AnchorWatch.
Yeah.
So AnchorWatch is an old nautical term, and it is the shift of sailors, like in the Navy, the shift of sailors who would protect the ship while at anchor or at port.
Okay.
And so we're protecting Bitcoin while it's in cold storage. We're keeping an eye on it when it's safe and sound. So that's where the name came from.
That's a really cool concept.
Thank you.
So obviously, a lot of your business is US, and you're shifting to the Middle East?
Currently we are authorized to distribute insurance in the United States. So currently we have customers between $250,000 and $100 million worth of Bitcoin in the U.S., but we are rapidly working on expanding to additional countries. So here in the UAE, we are, that's high on our priority list, along with the UK, Switzerland, Singapore, and the EU are all countries that we're prioritizing as we move forward.
Okay, and with regards to AnchorWatch itself, how does it differentiate from other companies within the market that might offer a similar?
Well, it's pretty differentiated on both the custody side, the technology side, as well as the insurance. So the insurance is first in the class. We're the only insurer in the world that can offer custody insurance to retail customers. There are a few players out there that offer large commercial policies, so we're kind of jumping in with them, but we're also the only player who is embedding that insurance with technology. So we very much are a tech-first company, which is really important because the concept of insurance, while it's dry, it's not something that people necessarily think a lot about. It is vitally, vitally important, and we are able to, because of a deep native understanding of the tech and what we've built, we were able to embed those things, which lets us sell the insurance for less money, so it's a more affordable product, as well as then we're very differentiated on the tech side as well. So as I mentioned, this is the biggest development in cold storage since 2013. So we didn't invent Miniscript, so I'm convinced it will be the standard in cold storage. And many companies will be building on in the near future, but it'll be a few years till they really catch up to what we've built, and it would be very hard for others to embed insurance in it.
Okay, and so with regards to like security and risk mitigation, how does that secure that for your client?
Yeah, that's a huge component of the business. So one of the integral ideas of this vault is that we hold keys while you are insured, but it becomes true self-custody or pure self-custody if you choose to no longer be a customer anymore, so using time locks. So this is very different from, say, collaborative custody, where a company may hold a backup key, whereas with us, you have your own keys and we have keys, and they're both required. And so what that means is, even if, for example, your keys were stolen, your keys can be stolen, but the Bitcoin hasn't moved yet because AnchorWatch is a required signer and we haven't signed yet. So your vault is totally independent from your neighbor's vault, from somebody else's vault, from a company's vault, because every single customer holds their own keys. So even if you're compromised, even if you do have a loss, if you're the victim of a wrench attack or some sort of catastrophe, that doesn't actually correspond to a loss in somebody else's vault. So we are distributing risk not just between us, but between every single customer is its own kind of risk pool. And that's why we're able to offer such large policies, because really there's no systematic risk of loss across our customer base, which again is totally unique in the industry.
Yeah, and obviously like a huge topic within the crypto space is regulation. How do you guys navigate that with all the constant changes?
Well, we approached it with this first product as a very traditional company. So, we really are kind of a boring old insurance provider. So the insurance itself is property insurance. So it's a very understandable policy. If you think about maybe purchasing and investing in fine arts. So let's say you buy a painting and you have your painting assessed and it's a $5 million painting. You would buy a $5 million property insurance policy. And this works really, really similarly. If you have $5 million of Bitcoin, you can buy a $5 million insurance policy. So in terms of the regulators, we were able to kind of demonstrate that with the way Bitcoin custody works, it really is just a boring old insurance policy, which means we're able to kind of fit within the existing regulations.
Okay. And given do you think that obviously with the crypto space keeping on evolving, what do you think of Donald Trump obviously coming into power? Obviously it went up and it's come down and leveled. And
well, I mean, I think he's a volatile personality, and I would expect his impact to also be volatile, right? So, a lot has happened just in a few weeks leading up to and since he took office. So I think one thing in particular that I think is really great for the industry is the clarification on SAB 121. So that's a regulation that now has been clarified to mean that banks are able to custody Bitcoin. So I think that's really important. I think, as larger pools of capital come into the space, they're looking for really reputable players to help them hold that asset. We're obviously playing a role in that, and we're happy to insure banks as they start building their capabilities. But I think that's one thing that's really positive. I think in terms of, I think he's also doing a lot of things in the broader crypto space that can cause a lot of, wild price swings. Yeah. And I think that will just continue, to be honest. I think he is who he is. And overall, I think he is very positive for Bitcoin. So we're really hopeful the industry continues to grow while he's in office.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, what's your thoughts on, I know you mainly focus on Bitcoin, but what's your thoughts on like meme coins?
I think one thing I appreciate about meme coins is that they don't pretend to be something that they're not. Okay. So I think of them truly as gambling. And so if you're going to participate in that, you need to do so at your own risk. But I at least appreciate that, I think a lot of tokens in the prior cycle were making promises about, utility and functionality and changing the world. And ultimately, there was a company and maybe some ulterior motives behind those tokens that weren't very transparent to the users. I think with meme coins, it is a little more, the coin's heart is on its sleeve, if you will, and it's more straightforward. I think they're highly, highly risky. I still think there's small groups of people that control a large supply of the tokens early in the issuance. And so if you're going to play, you just have to really understand that it may not all be as it seems. So
yeah, I think it just seems to be more community-led, really, doesn't it? The meme coin side of things rather than...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the story anyway. Yeah. I think once it achieves scale, so if a meme coin achieves, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of holders, I think it truly is just kind of a game that a large group of people are playing together. I think early on, though, again, I think there's a small group of people that maybe tell a story about being a community-led thing when in reality, there are still ulterior motives. So overall, I think I'm a bit of a free market capitalist, so I think people should be able to do what they would like, but I would say to tread cautiously.
0x processing are focused mainly on two things: acceptance rate and security, achieving an unprecedented level by combining blockchain infrastructure with broad account security measures. 0x Processing, a crypto payment gateway for your business.
Would you say crypto is gambling then?
Much of it is.
Okay.
Much of it is. I mean, I do think meme coins can certainly be classified as that. One of the differences between, say, traditional gambling, like in a casino, is that there are limitations placed on the casino. So there are regulations and there are some rules in place to limit exactly how much you can take from your customers in the big picture, and that doesn't really exist in crypto. So again, you just have to really have an appetite for that if you want to jump in. I don't think Bitcoin is gambling. I think Bitcoin is very different. I don't think it has a company behind it. I think that it addresses a very real problem that the world has with currency debasement, and in my opinion, that is the major enabler of corruption in the world and in the government. And corruption will exist regardless. It is human nature, I think. But as Bitcoin increases in prominence, I think it is a viable way to tamp that down. So I actually think Bitcoin really is in a class of its own, and it serves really the greater good, which is why I've chosen to work on it, and that's why we focus on it in the insurance.
Okay, so with going back to the insurance then, is that you mainly, it's just Bitcoin, so none, obviously, the meme coins or the tokens?
For a couple of reasons. I mean, one, that it's a choice we made, as I just described, but two, the technology I was describing is Bitcoin native tech. So everything that we've built is part of Bitcoin script today. So if we build a vault for you, it actually can be verified on chain. So you don't have to take our word for it that it works a certain way. You can actually go verify it before you put your Bitcoin in it. And so, that's one way it keeps people safe. And again, that is Bitcoin specific tech. So if we were going to insure other coins, it would be a totally different set of technology that frankly is not quite as safe. Everything else in terms of institutional custody tech for other coins is internet connected in one way or the other. It's MPC, which is multi-party computing. And so it would be a big build. The other reason is because insurance ultimately is kind of an AUM game. And so why would we put forth all the effort to insure a coin that very rapidly will be worthless? So we're focusing on the long term and building a really high quality product that will serve people for a long, long time.
Yeah. And obviously before we started, you were mentioning it's your 4th time coming to Dubai.
That's right, yeah.
How are you finding it?
I absolutely love it here. Yeah, I find it so welcoming. I've been here 4 times over the last about 3 years and have just had amazing opportunities. I've met just really interesting, really intelligent people, had amazing experiences, and there's obviously a lot of activity going on over here in terms of crypto, certainly, broader finance world. It's a very active place. Insurance itself is a capital market, so it's almost investment banking, but by another name. And so, this is just growing into a major hub for all sorts of finance activities. So it's a really exciting place to be. The architecture is beautiful. The food is amazing. I've made good friends here, so I really enjoy coming here.
It's definitely forward thinking. I mean, people can now buy real estate with crypto. And,
absolutely.
In the shops now you can pay with your crypto wallet. How does it differentiate from the States, whether that's, networking or crypto forward?
I think because people come here almost as a destination, like a finance and a crypto destination, the networking is in a way easier. People are eager to make introductions, and as soon as you get over here, people are offering to introduce you to the family office they know, or the person in government they know, or the regulators, and even the regulators themselves make themselves available. So if you're interested in setting up a business here, they are very helpful in terms of sharing information and enabling that. So I think, I think that's a very different vibe from in the United States. The United States is very comfortable for me, right? It's where I've always worked and done my business. But yeah, it is different and fun because they are really encouraging growth here. And so they are making a point to make it easy and enabling me as an entrepreneur to build.
And obviously saying that with the growth, we've got the win coming to Ras Al Khaimah in 2027.
I just heard about that yesterday. I wasn't familiar with it, but I just heard about that.
So it's going to be the first land-based casino in the UAE. The floor is going to be 4 times the size of the one in Las Vegas, which is huge.
Huge.
What's your thoughts, obviously coming from the States, what's your thoughts on gambling coming to a Muslim country?
Again, my personal bent is free market, right? So I think I think people are free to practice their religion and their personal morality, regardless of what businesses are operating next door, right? So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So I do think across the board, as I mentioned previously, one of the differences between, say, crypto and gambling and casinos is that casinos tend to have some guardrails around them to protect users, and I think that's positive, and I would imagine that will be in place here as well. I think people are free to, in my opinion, to kind of express themselves as they see fit, and that's really a personal decision. So
yeah, well, let's see, 2027.
Yes, let's see. Let's see.
Let's go back to then a bit more about AnchorWatch. So. Obviously, with the AI space developing, do you see AI being integrated with AnchorWatch at all in the what you've built?
Sure. In a couple of ways, we already are. So really, at this point, really just in the back office. So my co-founder, Rob Hamilton, he's an expert in Bitcoin script, and our engineering team are already using AI to accelerate their work. So they are using, AI agents specifically tuned for programming to really just enhance their work, speed up their work, and they absolutely are able to build more and faster than we could have with a small team even just a few years ago. So I think that will only accelerate. I think that will help us as a small startup as we go forward because it allows us to scale and do more with a smaller team. Another way is in terms of underwriting. So a big part of insurance, really the central part of insurance, is data, right? So we used data to build the ratings, to set pricing, right? So we're looking at all sorts of historical insurance information, that had nothing to do with crypto. So looking at how often people get kidnapped, how often internal fraud happens, how often tornadoes happen, right? So we're really churning through large amounts of data. And then on top of it, now that we have launched, we're building our own new data, right? Okay. And so over time, we will be able to use AI to more intelligently farm that data, build better products, build better pricing. And at the end of the day, that should help us continue to lower pricing over time because we'll have a very fine-tuned understanding of what our loss rates will be and how frequent and how severe they are.
Okay. And how have you found being a startup? Like, what challenges have you come across? Because obviously what you've built is quite revolutionary within that market. Mm-hmm. You must have come across a few hurdles
I think having a startup and being a co-founder is incredibly challenging. I had heard that before. I don't think you ever can really appreciate what that means until you're in it. My co-founder likes to say we chew a lot of glass. So it really is just every day is very, very challenging. Just because I think, it really is. It's just a small team. Everything is on your shoulders. Yeah. You are putting in Herculean efforts to do a massive amount of work. And I've always worked very hard in large companies. I was never somebody that slacked off, and yet I simply could not have ever kind of dreamed how hard I would be working right now. Specifically, we ran into challenge after challenge on the tech side, trying to figure out really how to properly protect what we expect will be billions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on our platform, and really be the groundbreaking builders building on Miniscript. We're not the only ones, but we are absolutely pushing this technology forward, which means the tech team is, paving the way for others, which means they run into challenges and roadblocks all the time that they have to figure out themselves because there aren't a ton of resources out there for them to go to. And then on the business side, again, really... it was immensely difficult to get the Lloyd's of London backing. Becoming a Lloyd's of London cover holder is a huge achievement. And, to get to the point that they said yes, we were told no many, many times by other traditional insurers who maybe thought that what we were doing was interesting, but they weren't really willing to enter the industry quite yet. So you would spend a lot of time kind of pitching and explaining what you were doing, and they would ask for due diligence. And so you would spend weeks or even months kind of making your case. And then at the end of them, they'd be like, well, it's so interesting, but yeah, it's not for us. We're not really into crypto. And so just, again and again, having to go back to the drawing board, and eventually we found an amazing partner in Lloyd. So that's been very, very gratifying to get there, but it was a long road.
Yeah, it sounds like persistency is key, really, in
Yep.
business.
I
You just
say-
got to keep going.
Absolutely. I say our team has immense endurance.
Okay.
Because, and we still do. We're still going. We just launched a few weeks ago to customers, and we said building up to that point, we had built and built and built just to get to the starting line, right? So we built for 3 years just to get to the point that we get to begin. And so now we're starting a whole new race, and no time to rest. Now we have customers. Now we have 8 figures on our platform, headed to 9 figures very soon, and beyond. So it's everything that we're doing is really important.
Very exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely.
What advice would you give to a young entrepreneur or someone new to the crypto space wanting to get into crypto or Web3?
I don't think I have anything particularly unique, but I think if you want to build a company that will last, you really do have to solve a problem for somebody. So, if you want to build on something, make sure that you perceive that there's a market for it. What problem exists that you are actually removing for somebody or solving for somebody, and make sure it's something that you're passionate about. Because everything I just said about endurance and chewing glass and running into roadblocks, that's very real. And if you're not passionate and excited about what you're building, it's hard to be motivated to keep going on that. When you get punched in the face, it's hard to keep getting up if you don't really believe in what you're building. And so certainly, I think all founders are hoping to eventually, find rewards for their work, but you have a long road before you feel those rewards. So you really need to emotionally be in what you're doing.
Yeah, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners that watch the show, and how do you navigate burnout? Because inevitably, anyone who owns a business comes to face that at some point because you're putting your all in.
Yeah. Again, I think we're a special group of people who have the demeanor to have that endurance. But certainly, I don't know if burnout is the right word for us because we do keep going and we do have that endurance to push through it. But yeah, just some days, it's immensely difficult and it's hard and it's lonely. And I was warned ahead of time. One of my friends and investors told me that it's a very lonely thing, and I believed him, but I also didn't really know what that meant. And what it means is that nobody cares about what you're doing as much as you do. Yeah. Especially when you're pre-launch and you're building, nobody can see what you're doing, right? So your head's down. You're in your office alone, just working. And, even if you have a really lovely, supportive family, good friends, they don't know what you're doing. And so you really are in this kind of solitary race And some days, not many. I don't take many days off, but every couple of months, I take a day off and I sleep and just do what I want to do. And, I have a garden and I try to be in nature a little bit, or I go ski but it's short breaks, right? So you really do have to, if you need a break, you take a break, but then you have to shake it off and get back to the computer and keep at it.
Yeah. Where do you see AnchorWatch in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, I see us as the primary player in the Bitcoin insurance scene, hands down. We absolutely are out in front. The product that I was describing to you is just our first insured custody product. We have a lot of different Bitcoin-related insurance products and insured custody variants, where if our exact product that we've built so far maybe isn't exactly right for you, if the vault configuration, if the key management isn't exactly what maybe a company is looking for, that's okay. We will have multiple other different solutions, all backed by really high quality insurance. And it's not just custody as well. So the tech that we have built and just the concept of needing insurance applies to other financial products as well. So whether it's Bitcoin-backed loans or escrow products, which certainly has applications within the gambling industry, all sorts of escrow applications in the gambling industry. This tech is very applicable to it. And if you're going to lock up your Bitcoin in an escrow solution or in a loan, it really should be insured, right? It's sitting there, it's acting as collateral for a loan or for a bet. It really should be protecting the counterparties with insurance. So I really do see AnchorWatch as being the premier provider of all those sorts of services go forward for customers of all sizes.
No. And if you could change one thing about the crypto space, if anything, what do you think it would be? Because obviously you've been in it for so long, you've seen it evolve to what it is now, even Bitcoin. What is it hit now? It's a $2 trillion asset. So, I think there's unfortunately a lot of shady behavior in the space. So, as I was talking about before, I really do think Bitcoin is world-changing technology. I think it's an invention that benefits humanity, and there's a lot of wild activity going around on the fringes of that. Now, on one side, all that activity brings maybe a lot of users and some interest to the industry, which may indirectly benefit us and benefit Bitcoin. But I think long term, I think individuals, I think some retail people that participate end up getting hurt by it and end up, net poorer than they started with. And I would love to, see as many people prosper and do really well for themselves and for their families go forward. So I would love to see, regulations stripped away where they impede high quality businesses from growing and from moving forward into building really interesting technology. And I would like to see maybe some clamping down on unethical behavior as well that hurts people. So. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's been really lovely having you on. And where can our users find AnchorWatch?
AnchorWatch.com. So we're all over Twitter. You can look for us there. We have the AnchorWatch handle, and AnchorWatch.com is the best place to get more info.
Okay, amazing. You heard it. AnchorWatch.com. Go check it out. Thank you so much for coming on BetTalks. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.